I made a video about 2 weeks ago about why Ja Morant is the most overrated young star in the league, but like I did last time when I made this video on Kyle Kuzma, I wanted to make a follow-up video being more positive than negative, talking about the most underrated young player in the league. Last time, Kyle Kuzma was my most overrated, and I was right about that, and then my most underrated was Jaren Jackson Jr., and we'll see on him, but today I want to talk about RJ Barrett as my most underrated young star in the league. The New York Knicks have been amazing this season, or at least amazing by their standards, being that they have not been a decent team in over 7 years. And yet somehow the Knicks' second best player, with them being as good as they are this year, has gotten very little credit. This year, after a very rough start in his first 11 games, RJ is averaging 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists on 49, 46, 78 splits. This after a rookie year where many people outright dismissed RJ Barrett because of how poorly he played in his first season. So RJ has been proving his doubters wrong, and the Knicks have been awesome, and in spite of this, he is getting very little credit. I hear very little about the guy in general. When people are talking about the Knicks, it's Julius Randle and Tom Thibodeau, and maybe they'll mention RJ Barrett on the side. But let's talk today about why RJ Barrett is the most underrated young star in the league. Real quick before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Also real quick, there is a new episode of the podcast featuring Noah Terranova. This episode, in my opinion, is the best one that we have ever done, so if you have not watched that one already, please be sure to go do that, and I'm going to put a clip at the end of this video to convince you to watch it. So for those who might be a little ignorant, what is RJ's actual skill set? Well, RJ is a big forward who can dribble and play make. He's a really good slasher, and his defense has taken a big leap this year. I saw a statistic on Twitter the other day that was like his last 10 or so games, he's holding his opponents to an average 40% from the field, which is very good. And his shooting this year has taken a really big leap. The biggest problem for RJ in the past that made people hesitant on him was his shooting. He took a lot of mid-range shots and they did not go in, but this year he's nearing 40% from 10 to 16 feet and 16 feet to the three-point line, which is getting close to good territory, and that's a 10% leap from last year, and his three-point percentage has gone up by 5% as well. And if you take out those 11 games at the start of the season where he just could not make a damn thing, he has been a 40+% three-point shooter. Now, it is still on low volume, about 3 attempts per game, but it's not really quite a weakness for him, at least not to the extent that it was previous. He's also around 20% better from the free throw line, which for someone who gets the line a decent amount is definitely a nice thing to see. Now, those playmaking chops that I mentioned briefly have been something that has been neglected with RJ's game thus far in his career. He has 2 problems. First of all, the situation in New York is not amazing for his playmaking. In his rookie year, he didn't have any spacing. Julius Randle was not someone who you got a lot of assists off of because he was the type of guy who would take it slow. And he was also just had this issue where he has tunnel vision sometimes, which is weird to say for a guy who you consider a playmaker, but it's almost like he flips a switch where he has tunnel vision, but then the next play he'll make a pass that makes you think he could average 8 to 9 assists per game. This is something that Noah Terranova, who was the guest on our podcast, has referred to as being a basketball genius with attention deficit disorder. And I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. But I do think the main problem for him there is still the situation in New York, and it still is kind of today, because even though Randle has been significantly better this year and he's been a good three-point shooter this year, the spacing in New York is still not amazing, and he's not getting as many opportunities to pass as you would like, because they also have Emmanuel Quickley, Derrick Rose, and Elfrid Payton on the team now, so a lot of ball handlers taking away duties from him. But that is what RJ is at the moment. What is his actual ceiling? What is his potential? Well, I have said in the past before that I think he can be Jimmy Butler-like, but I think that was taken a bit out of context, especially fuck the battery died, god damn it. As I was saying, he could be a Jimmy Butler type of talent, but I think it's important to note that I'm talking about Jimmy just purely as a talent, whereas Jimmy also has this winning mentality and the I'm just going to take over this game at any point necessary kind of mindset that I don't think exists with RJ Barrett. In fact, if I was going to point to one major weakness with RJ, it's that he doesn't really have a strong mentality one way or the other. It's not like he gives up on himself or anything like that, like Wendell Carter Jr., but he is a not like, oh, I'm taking over the game now type of guy. He's not a vocal leader, at least from what I can tell. You know, there's always stuff that can be going on behind the scenes, but at least on the court, he does not seem like the guy who's taking command and telling people what to do. It seems like he's rather happy just being the guy who is following rather than leading, which is fine, but it is going to hinder his actual ceiling a bit. But as an actual talent, I do think there is a comparison to Jimmy Butler because he is a big guard slash wing who is a playmaker, though his playmaking has not shown the heights that Jimmy's has at the moment. He's a mid-range shooter, not a good one yet, but I think he will be. And while he won't be able to get to the free throw line, I think as much as Jimmy has, just because Jimmy is like top 5 in that category, I do think he's going to be a better three-point shooter, and the slashing should be about the same. And defensively, I think RJ Barrett has a whole lot of upside to be on a similar tier. But removing the mentality thing, that's not getting you into the top 15, even top 10 category that Jimmy Butler is in. It's getting you more around the top 25-ish spot, which is still a very nice place to be. So that's what I think his potential is. Now the question is, can he reach it? Because thus far in his career, he has not had the best situation around him to do it. See, I've made this point before in some of my post-game recaps on my second channel. Go subscribe to my second channel if you have not already. But I do feel that Julius Randle sometimes hinders RJ's potential, and I think long-term he could hinder RJ's potential, as well as Obi Toppin, but that's not what this video is about. Randle, even though he's better fit-wise next to RJ this year than he was last year, because as I mentioned, he's hitting his threes this year, and Randle has been a really good playmaker this year, I do believe RJ could benefit from being the lead ball handler or the secondary ball handler, and the situation in New York is not allowing that. Also, the spacing is not really allowing it. This team has primarily been defense focused, and that's been the main reason why they've been winning, and RJ has been a big part of that, but offensively, their impact has not been amazing, and RJ has not been able to do as much as you would like. So hopefully Randle is either eventually out of New York, or they just find a way to coexist in a way that allows RJ to be more impactful or able to do more. He's still very impactful now, but in terms of reaching his actual potential, I do feel that Randle gets in his way. But other than that, I don't think there's too much of an issue. I think Tom Thibodeau is an alright coach for him. The spacing in New York is better this year. It's still not great, but it's better. There's some more veterans in there with Derrick Rose, who's in there, for example. So I do think this is a better situation. Taj Gibson, but it is not as good as it could be to allow him to reach his potential. That's for damn sure. As for why I think he's underrated, well, first of all, I mentioned at the start that he is the second best player on the Knicks, and he gets very little talked about him. Like, despite this, most of the credit goes to Julius Randle and Tom Thibodeau, and even a lot of the buzz goes to Emmanuel Quickley just simply because he's a rookie. But another reason is that RJ Barrett was, like I said, dismissed after his rookie year. Like, he had a poor rookie year. He didn't even make the all-rookie team despite being the number 3 pick in the draft and having plenty of opportunity. But the thing is, as I pointed out multiple times last year, his situation, especially last year, was bad for what he was trying to be. Julius Randle was not shooting the ball well, and he was not playmaking, so he was literally just a guy who posted up and got in his way. There was no spacing other than like Kevin Knox, which is depressing to say he was by far the best shooter on that team that year. And just in general, other than maybe Damian Dotson, but just in general, it was a poor situation for him in his rookie year, and his minutes were inconsistent, and it was just not the right place. And so many people were like, nope, RJ Barrett sucks. And that was very frustrating to me because I didn't think he sucked based on that. And this year, he has proved those doubters wrong because even in a not ideal situation, still, he's up to 17 points per game in his second year on relatively positive efficiency, and especially positive efficiency once you take out the rough start to the season. So RJ Barrett, I believe, has top 25 player potential. He's a good defensive player, a very good slasher, has potential to be a very good playmaker, and especially a secondary ball handler and playmaker, and his shooting has taken a really big leap this year, and he has been the second best player on a playoff team right now. So That's very good to see out of a second-year player. And yet, RJ Barrett, very little conversation around him. So do not sleep on RJ Barrett. Other than that, again, there is a new podcast. Here is a quick clip.
Welcome to the Rusty, Mojo, and Rudy podcast, where we teach you how to wipe your ass and wash your hands.
And we make up for the gaps in your parents' failures.
The pandemic opened up my eyes.
Wait. I wanted to say something. Rudy, when I asked you to edit in a clip to my video to promote the podcast, just edit Mojo saying the Rusty and Mojo story, teach you what you're at.
All right. I will.
All right, what are you saying, Noah?
Go check out that podcast if you haven't already. Again, like I said, it is the best episode, so it'd be much appreciated if you watched it. But that is I forgot to say shout out to Rudy again. But shout out to Rudy for editing this video. But that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.